Yes or no, would you ever advise the administration it could ignore a district court order because you believed the Supreme Court would ultimately rule otherwise? Yes or no, would you ever advise them that?
Senator, applicable court orders should be followed.
That's not my question. Yes or no?
Senator, you asked me.
Yes or no, Mr. Gaiser? It's a simple question.
Senator?
Mr. Gaiser, you were able to answer Senator Kennedy. Are you raising a doubt now about your answers to Senator Kennedy because you can't answer this question? Would you ever advise the administration that it could ignore an applicable district court opinion or order because you believed the Supreme Court would ultimately overturn the order? Yes or no?
Senator, if I'm confirmed to lead the Office of Legal Counsel,
all right.
I would.
You're not answering the question. So I guess the answer is to Senator Kennedy, you just might advise the administration to ignore a district court order. Would you agree that it would be unlawful for the president to accept a gift from a foreign state without the consent of Congress? Would you agree that's unlawful?
Well, thank you for that question, Senator.
Yes or no?
Whether something is lawful or not, I would always want to look.
I'm just asking you a simple question. Is it unlawful for the president to accept a gift from a foreign state without the consent of Congress?
Can the president simply ignore a federal court order because he believes the Supreme Court will eventually overturn it? Senator Adam Schiff demanded a simple yes or no answer from top DOJ nominees, but instead of answering directly, they repeatedly qualified their responses. What followed became a tense confrontation over presidential power and the Constitution.
Would you ever advise the administration that it could ignore or disregard an applicable district court order because you believe the Supreme Court will ultimately overturn it?
Senator, as I said before,
yes, just a yes or no question.
I don't believe I'll ever be in that position.
But you may not. But just like you answered Senator Kennedy, I want to make sure that you were not misleading anyone. So let me ask the question again. Would you ever advise the administration that it could disregard an applicable district court opinion or order because you believe the Supreme Court will ultimately overturn it? Yes or no?
I don't want to speculate, but I can't see a situation where I would advise to not follow a court order.
So your answer is no, you would never advise them to disregard a district court order, even if you thought the Supreme Court would overturn it.
Again, I don't want to speak.
I just want you to be precise and answer yes or no.
I can't see a time where I would do that. No.
Okay. Mr. Gaiser, yes or no?
Thank you very much, Senator Schiff. I would advise clients to follow court orders.
Even if you believe the Supreme Court would ultimately overturn the district court?
Well, Senator, as far as...
Yes or no?
The answer is the same. The president has said he will follow court orders.
The same answer, yes or no?
Senator, the president has said he will follow...
You were able to answer Senator Kennedy, but I want to make sure that you were not misleading Senator Kennedy. Yes or no, would you ever advise the administration it could ignore a district court order because you believed the Supreme Court would ultimately rule otherwise? Yes.
That issue became even more consequential after this hearing. In the months that followed, the Trump administration repeatedly faced federal judges ordering it to pause or change specific actions, while the administration appealed several of those decisions. The broader constitutional fight was therefore not theoretical. It became an ongoing battle over how the executive branch responds when lower courts disagree with presidential policy.
Yes or no, would you ever advise them that?
Senator, applicable court orders should be followed.
That's not my question. Yes or no?
Senator, you asked me...
Yes or no, Mr. Gaiser? It's a simple question.
Senator?
Mr. Gaiser, you were able to answer Senator Kennedy. Are you raising a doubt now about your answers to Senator Kennedy because you can't answer this question?
Senator, I would advise clients to follow applicable court orders.
Is that a yes or no?
I would advise clients to follow applicable...
Is that a yes or no? Let me repeat the question so there's no ambiguity about it. Would you ever advise the administration, you're going to be, if you're confirmed, heading the Office of Legal Counsel that helps determine whether actions are lawless or lawful, would you ever advise the administration that it could ignore an applicable district court opinion or order because you believed the Supreme Court would ultimately overturn the order?
He's not asking whether the administration will eventually win at the Supreme Court. He's asking whether a currently applicable court order has to be obeyed while an appeal is pending. After this hearing, federal courts continued issuing injunctions and other orders involving major Trump administration policies, while the administration challenged those rulings through the appeals process. That distinction, obeying a court order now versus ultimately winning the legal argument later, became one of the central legal battles of Trump's second term.
Yes or no?
Senator, if I'm confirmed to lead the Office of Legal Counsel,
All right.
I would.
You're not answering the question. So I guess the answer is to Senator Kennedy, you just might advise the administration to ignore a district court order. How about you, counsel?
Thank you, Senator Schiff. In my role as director, I
Just
am not
asking yes or no.
Well, I would thank you. I wish to clarify. I'm not, if confirmed, a director. I'm not acting in a legal capacity at all. I'm part of the executive agency branch, and therefore would not be advising clients on any aspects of that.
Well, would it be appropriate, in your view, for anyone else among legal counsel to do so?
In general, court orders should be followed and respected. There are situations which I recall back from law school between branches.
I guess you're not able to answer the question either. Counsel, how about you?
Senator Schiff, thank you. I mean, I agree. I don't believe it's appropriate to address this hypothetical. At the Department of Justice.
Okay, so you want to revise your answer to Senator Kennedy then? That is, there may be circumstances where you advise the administration to disregard a district court of opinion because you believe the Supreme Court might rule otherwise. Is that your opinion?
As a lawyer, the answer is it depends.
Okay, thank you. Then we'll make sure Senator Kennedy is aware that you just might, it depends, advise the administration to ignore court orders.
Senator,
let me ask another question. Mr. Gaiser, would you agree that it would be unlawful for the president to accept a gift from a foreign state without the consent of Congress? Would you agree that's unlawful?
Well, thank you for that question, Senator.
Yes or no?
Whether something is lawful or not, I would always want to look.
I'm just asking you a simple question. Is it unlawful for the president to accept a gift from a foreign state without the consent of Congress? Very simple question.
Senator, as a lawyer, I would always give my...
I'm not asking you for a preamble, just yes or no.
Well, Senator Schiff, it depends on the fact...
Well, Mr. Gaiser, where is the depends on the facts of Article 1, Section 9, Clause 8, which says, no person holding any office shall, without consent of Congress, accept any present from any foreign state. That's the Constitution. Doesn't say, well, it depends, or it might, or maybe. It says, no person shall do so. Do you find that ambiguous?
Senator,
I thought you were supposed to be the strict constructionists. This is what the Constitution says. Is there an exception for $400 million planes from Gulf emirs?
Since the May 21st, 2025 Senate Judiciary Committee hearing, the questions raised by Senator Adam Schiff about whether the administration would follow federal court orders became part of a much larger fight over executive power and the judiciary. At the hearing, Elliot Gaiser, the nominee to lead the Justice Department's Office of Legal Counsel, repeatedly said applicable court orders should be followed, but when Schiff pressed him to give a simple yes or no answer about whether he could ever advise the administration to disregard a district court order, Gaiser ultimately said, it depends. The exchange drew attention because the Office of Legal Counsel provides authoritative legal advice to the executive branch. A second major development directly connected to the hearing was the $400 million Qatari aircraft controversy that Schiff raised at the end of his questioning. On May 21, 2025, the same day as this hearing, Schiff and several Senate Judiciary Democrats asked the DOJ Inspector General to investigate the department's role in the Trump administration's acceptance of the luxury Boeing 747 from Qatar. Their letters specifically raised questions about whether DOJ lawyers, including the Office of Legal Counsel, had been involved in developing a legal justification for accepting the aircraft. That controversy did not disappear after the hearing. The aircraft was ultimately accepted by the U.S. government and became the subject of continuing congressional and legal scrutiny. In July 2026, a Republican senator blocked a Democratic effort to prohibit additional Pentagon spending on the aircraft's retrofit. By that point, the plane had been modified for presidential use, and Trump had already used it for international travel. The dispute over the plane also remains tied to the constitutional issue Schiff raised during this exchange. Article 1, Section 9, Clause 8 of the Constitution restricts federal office holders from accepting certain gifts or emoluments from foreign states without congressional consent. Schiff's argument was that the Constitution does not simply say it depends, it establishes a restriction that requires Congress to play a role. The administration, however, argued that the aircraft could be accepted by the Defense Department under existing authorities, while Attorney General Pam Bondi reportedly concluded that accepting the aircraft was legally permissible. That brings us back to the confrontation in the hearing room. Schiff was not simply asking whether the nominees personally respected judges. He was testing whether future Justice Department officials would place court orders above presidential preference when those orders conflicted with the administration's policy goals. His first target was Gaiser. Schiff repeatedly narrowed the question. If a federal district court issued an applicable order and the administration believed the Supreme Court would eventually overturn it, could the administration ignore the district court order in the meantime? Gaiser initially said he could not imagine advising the administration not to follow a court order. But when Schiff continued pressing him for a definitive answer, Gaiser would not provide the categorical no Schiff wanted. Instead, he returned to the principle that applicable court orders should be followed and ultimately characterized the legal question as dependent on circumstances. That distinction is important. A lawyer can say that court orders generally must be followed while still recognizing that particular legal disputes may involve questions about jurisdiction, enforceability, stays, appeals, or the precise scope of an order. But Schiff was deliberately trying to eliminate those qualifications because he wanted the nominees on the record rejecting the idea that a president could simply decide a lower court order was wrong and ignore it. The issue became even more important because the hearing occurred during a period when the Trump administration was facing multiple court challenges to its policies. Schiff's concern was therefore about precedent. If executive officials can decide that a district court ruling does not deserve compliance because they believe the Supreme Court will eventually reverse it, critics argue that the judicial system becomes unstable. A lower court order would effectively become optional whenever the executive branch disagreed with the judge. Supporters of the administration would frame the issue differently. They could argue that federal courts sometimes issue orders that exceed their lawful authority, and that the executive branch has a constitutional duty to challenge unlawful judicial overreach rather than automatically accepting every judicial demand. That tension is exactly why the exchange became so heated. Schiff then moved from court orders to the Constitution's Foreign Emoluments Clause. He asked Gaiser whether it would be unlawful for a president to accept a gift from a foreign state without congressional consent. Again, Gaiser resisted giving the simple answer Schiff demanded. Schiff responded by pointing directly to Article 1, Section 9, Clause 8, and arguing that the constitutional language is explicit. He then connected the question to the $400 million Qatari aircraft, asking whether there was some constitutional exception that allowed a foreign government to provide such a valuable gift without Congress approving it. That was the key political moment of the exchange. The court order question and the Qatar aircraft question were actually connected by a larger principle: who gets to decide what the law means when the president's actions are challenged? If the executive branch believes its interpretation is correct, should it be able to proceed despite a district court order? And if the administration believes a foreign gift is lawful, how much authority should it have to make that determination without Congress? Those are not merely partisan questions. They go directly to the separation of powers. The later developments surrounding the Qatar aircraft show why Schiff's questioning was not simply theoretical. The aircraft became an ongoing constitutional, ethics, and national security controversy, with lawmakers continuing to debate whether the executive branch had the authority to accept it and spend federal money modifying it. In July 2026, lawmakers were still fighting over additional funding for the aircraft. The legal controversy also remained unresolved in another important respect. A FOIA battle over the DOJ legal memorandum concerning the Qatar aircraft continued after the administration's initial acceptance of the plane. The dispute has centered on transparency surrounding the legal reasoning used to justify the arrangement. Meanwhile, Gaiser ultimately became a Central Justice Department legal official. His later role matters because the questions Schiff asked were about the responsibilities of the very office Gaiser was nominated to lead. The Office of Legal Counsel is not just another government office. It provides legal interpretations that can shape how the executive branch understands its own authority. So, looking back at the hearing, Schiff's strongest point was that "it depends" is a very different answer from "no" when the question is whether an administration may disregard a valid court order. But the counterargument deserves attention too. Legal disputes involving court orders are rarely as simple as a television-style yes or no question. Lawyers have to consider jurisdiction, stays, appeals, statutory authority, and the exact language of the order. Saying that every disagreement with a lower court ruling automatically requires blind compliance could also ignore legitimate constitutional disputes about judicial power. The same applies to the Qatar aircraft. Schiff argued that the Constitution clearly requires congressional consent for a foreign gift. The administration argued that the aircraft was accepted by the government under existing legal authority rather than simply being handed personally to the president. The continuing controversy demonstrates that the underlying legal question was far from settled politically. Ultimately, this hearing was about much more than one nominee refusing to answer a yes or no question. It was about the boundaries of presidential power. It was about whether federal judges can effectively restrain an administration when the White House believes those judges are wrong. And it was about whether Congress still has meaningful authority when the executive branch develops its own legal justification for controversial actions. The developments that followed make Schiff's questioning even more relevant. The Qatar aircraft remained a major constitutional and spending controversy into 2026, while the broader conflict between the Trump administration and federal courts continued to shape national politics. So here's the question. If a president genuinely believes a district court order is legally wrong and expects the Supreme Court to overturn it, must the administration obey that order until it is overturned, or should the executive branch ever have the authority to disregard it? And on the Qatar aircraft, was the administration within its constitutional authority to accept the $400 million foreign gift, or should Congress have been required to approve it first? Let us know what you think, and subscribe to Capitol Clips for more congressional confrontations and the latest developments behind the hearings.